Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Wyndham Championship DraftKings picks and preview. Rick Gehman at Rick Run Good. Now on Twitter will be joining me in just a second, but I want to let everyone know how they can get into some draws for 20 DK dollars and to become a member of fantasynational.com. Right now, the golf season's not over. There's still like boku bucks to be won in DraftKings golf for the rest of the season. Then like the new season starts like midway through September. So build your nice bankroll for football right now, or just hold it over to the swing season when we actually do print. Like my picks have been so garbage for like the past 3 months. Swing season, early season, when like people are paying half attention, that is when Fantasy National really hammers down and gives you the good picks, because not everyone is just kind of playing them. You're playing against people who are just like, oh, I'm playing football this week, I'll play some golf too. That's when you can really capitalize. We had a great swing season the past 2 years. I expect another really nice one for the upcoming season. So fantasynational.com, become a member, hit the description or comment section of this video or podcast, and check out the link to the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open. 3,000 spots this week. It's over half filled already. So you're going to want to get into the best no-rake tournament. Well, it's the best tournament because it has no rake on DraftKings. But if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, smash the like button for the episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and then tell me which player over $9,000 this week is most likely to miss the cut. Rick Gehman from DFSOnDemand.com is on the line with me right now. How do you like my draw versus your draw from last week?
Well, I like it better because of the timing. Yeah, I had a draw last week. Which guy over 10K is going to miss the cut? It was a no-cut event. Everyone told me what an idiot I was. It probably got more comments than anything else. So maybe I was a genius for doing it. But no, I was actually just an idiot.
No, see, I think that works really well. You got to, because Twitter will like track engagement on anything, and then it'll like pump you up to suggested follows lists and things like that. It's how you rig the algorithm. Hey, it's the Tim Andercutt strategy of just having bad takes.
Right. Forcing people to reply and tell you how wrong you are is probably not a bad strategy.
See, it's why trolls exist on the internet and they have a ton of followers. Anyway, you can also get into a draw for 20 DK bucks by leaving a review for the audio podcast, 5 stars, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show, or following me on Instagram at the PME, liking one of the golf photos that is up there, leaving your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Boom. All winners will be announced on next Monday's show. Jeff Feinberg says he will be there for that, but as I talked to Jeff yesterday, I recommend you go back and check out that show. But in the time between then and now, Jeff has become a father for the second time. Isabel River Feinberg entered the world this morning, so congratulations to Jeff, his family, his wife, healthy baby. So everyone go tweet at Jeff and give him your congratulations. And Rick, he wasn't able to get Rivers as the middle name, so it's just River.
I think he did a hell of a job. I mean, to even get that close, I can't imagine the negotiations that he might have had to go through for that. I think Jeff did an excellent job. Congrats to him. Congrats to the family.
And congrats to you as well. You're now a married man. You're just back from your honeymoon. There's a lot going on here. Everyone said, hey, Wyndham Championship, the FedEx Cup playoffs. This is a good time to take a vacation.
Yeah, that's right. Let me head to Mexico for a week. I was watching Rory shoot a, whatever it was, 78 in the open round at the Open Championship. I thought he was playing great, Pat, but I was pretty intoxicated, so everything looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, he played much better the next day. When he missed that like 1 foot putt that ended up costing him the cut, that probably wasn't the best. But hey, if you were so drunk it didn't matter. That sounds like a great situation to be in than actually having money on Rory at the Open Championship.
Yeah, exactly. He looked a lot like I do. I miss those like 15-inch putts all the time. I was, laying around it. Everything looked good. You couldn't pull me down.
So I saw that you had released an episode, then I went and listened to it on your podcast feed about the merger between DraftKings and the PGA. Then we got to talking. Obviously, there's not going to be a live final this year. Hopefully that's something that comes in the future. There's just not enough time left to organize that, because people are like, oh yeah, let's have a live final this year. It's like, what are you going to do with the Tour Championship with like a weird scoring system and only 30 players in the field with no cut? No one wants that. Like, if you had qualified for the Fantasy Golf World Championship and that is the tournament where you actually had to go make your picks, that would be just horrible. It would really take away any advantage that you had, and obviously you're good enough to qualify, or you got really lucky one week, whichever one it might be, but it takes a lot of the skill out of the equation, because we don't even know how that tournament's going to unfold. I liked your idea of just picking a tournament to go to, and maybe we'll just have like our own live final, something like that. And I think Mayakoba is the one. If it wasn't the middle of football season, it seems like the best bang for your buck.
Pat, I was trying to rally up the troops to get to Mayakoba. That it would be the perfect situation. You still might find me down there. I'll go by myself if I have to. But no, to your point, I mean, I think it would be really cool to kind of get everybody. I mean, there's so many tour stops. We can figure something out. It doesn't have to be like the official live final. We'll hang around, maybe find a place to play golf. Like I want to do that. I think it's a really good community. So trying to narrow down what those locations might be. Everybody wants to do the Waste Management, Honda Classic.
I've been to the Waste Management, probably not the ideal setup. If you don't have a box on 16, it's an absolute gong show. There are so many people there.
That's exactly kind of the same thing that I've heard. So I'm fading away from the Waste Management. Torrey Pines, I'm out close to Torrey Pines. They've got 2 courses, so everybody kind of gets spread out the first couple of days. So that might be a better viewing experience. So Honda was in there. We're trying to figure it out, but I think it's something we got to do next year.
I'm telling you, Canadian Open, you Americans come up to Canada, your dollar goes an awful long way. I can take a $10 Uber to the course. It'll be perfect.
I do love a good exchange rate, so that's a good flirt for me.
And Toronto in the end of June. Pretty nice weather, I'm not going to lie to you. It's been fantastic here for like 2 months.
I was going to say, is that the 6-week window where it's like good weather? That's right in there?
6-week window. Listen to your California privilege coming through. We get like a solid 7-8 weeks of good weather up here, all right?
I know. I said something on Twitter about the West Coast, and my Philly buddies just absolutely shredded me. They told me give up your East Coast card. I'm a full Californian now, so super snobby.
Yeah, I would probably trade in that card too. I'd give up my Canada card and take the California card any day, where it's just kind of nice and like 70 degrees 11 months of the year. I could handle that, I think.
Yeah, we're ready for you. Come on out.
All right, well, we'll see. I mean, can you lower your tax rate a bit? Then I might be good.
No, that's the old sunshine tax. You gotta pay that for the palm trees, baby.
All right, so it looks like I'm moving to Arizona or New Mexico. Then that's where I'm gonna be. That's where I'm gonna end up. So let's talk about the Wyndham Championship and the course itself. You released just a screenshot on Twitter right after the WGC ended, focusing on driving accuracy. Do you think that you will be targeting these driving accuracy mavens? 6 of the past 8 winners of the Wyndham Championship have finished inside the top 15 in driving accuracy for the week. But is that just enough to get you onto someone, do you think? Or do they need to have other skills to go along with it?
Yeah, so not necessarily is driving accuracy the only thing, of course. It is more important this week than other weeks on the PGA Tour, which is kind of the thing that I was mostly getting at when we throw this type of stuff out on Twitter. And where I found that it was able to kind of bear itself was in some of those value picks. It's like the Ryan Armours, it's the long shots, it's the guys under 7,500, things like that their accuracy allows them or puts them in a position where most weeks they're not able to find success at a course. They can find it here at Sedgefield. So obviously someone like Brandt Snedeker, who's not known for his accuracy off the tee, has had plenty of success here. So it's certainly not just the only thing that I'm looking at, but I'm certainly weighing whether it's accuracy, strokes gained off the tee, good drive percentage, fairways gained, like all those driving stats that show that you're a better driver of the golf ball than the rest of the field. I'm definitely weighing them more this week.
Yeah, the big one that I'm using, I actually mixed it into my modeling on fantasynational.com, is the Fantasy National stat fairways gained. I like it more than driving accuracy because driving accuracy doesn't really give you a good gauge. I mean, it does. Like, if you're just offhanded looking at it, the guys at the top are going to be fairly straight hitters and find fairways more often. But a lot of driving accuracy really depends on where you play. Like, if you played Kapalua and the John Deere and some of these places with super wide fairways, like, yeah, you're going to hit like 80% of the fairways. You go to a course almost like Innisbrook, the Copperhead Resort for the Valspar, like it's hard to hit fairways there. So, is hitting 65% of fairways at Innisbrook equivalent to hitting 85% of fairways at Kapalua? Or even if you take something like the Sony Open where the field hits like 50% and it doesn't really matter, but it would be weighed against you in driving accuracy. When you look at something like fairways gained, it just measures your performance against the field that week and gives you a ranking. So you would have to hit like 90% of the fairways at Kapalua versus the 80 that the field hits in order to actually come out positive on that end. So I do like that stat a little bit more because it doesn't work, as a one-off for every single course on tour, but I think it gives you a better gauge on who the most accurate players are. So I weighted that in. The other things that I really weighted in, there are 8 par 4s between 400 and 450 yards, these shorter par 4s. So I put that in there, the par 5s. But let me ask you about this with the par 5s. So looking at par 5s gained or par 5 scoring, par 5 birdies or better, whatever it might be, is usually one thing if it takes, not all the field can reach the greens in 2, but all the field, regardless of how short you hit the ball off the tee, are going to be able to attack both of these par 5s. 70 eagles last year on this course in terms of eagles. Does that de-emphasize par 5 scoring for you because it's just available to the entire field now? It doesn't show you who's actually better at some of these longer par 5s because there are none?
Yeah, I think it does. It's one of these things when I run all the stats through, and I think all across the industry, a lot of us do this, right, to try to figure out what the most important stats are. Par 5 scoring does usually show up on these par 70s, even though there are a bunch of par 4s, because you only get 2 opportunities to take advantage of par 5s. Unfortunately, it didn't even come close for me this week in the model because of what I believe is what you just described, Pat, which is everyone has access to these par 5s. It's not like half the field can get there in 2. There's not really a risk reward aspect to it. It's just like, hey, they're almost like long par 4s. Everyone's playing it. There's not a huge edge on either side of it. And it did not show up as one of the most important stats. It was actually quite interesting to see.
Yeah, when I looked at it, like the overall field, like if you go to the course breakdown page on Fantasy National, it shows you whether the top 20, the top 10, top 5, miscut players, the winner, like you can search by certain strokes gained stats of whatever you would like to see the finishing position of these guys. Par 5 gained rates out higher than par 4s gained or par 3s gained, and it's substantially higher, which usually leads me to believe that the par 5s are just easy, and then the Brian Gays and Ryan Armours of the world can really go attack them as well. So it's really tough to overweight that by any means. You'd want it at a course where you mentioned the risk reward is a lot higher than the Hidekis of the world really separate themselves from the pack because you know that they'll have the shot to get there in 2, where that's not the case this week. So besides approach, did you factor in these par 4s like I did because there's 8 of them?
Yep, I do like par 4 scoring. Approach is always going to be important. And then the other one that popped up for me when I put all 508 stats or whatever it is for the PGA Tour through is bogey avoidance. And what I've noticed, Pat, is this comes up on either very difficult courses or very easy courses. Which kind of makes sense because if you're at the US Open, if you can avoid making a bogey, like pars are a good score. But when you get to these very easy courses, which I think Sedgefield's 40 out of 50 in scoring, something like that, it's going to be a low number that wins this. You might be losing ground making pars already. If you make a bogey, you're like losing 2 strokes on the field. So it's interesting to see that bogey avoidance showed up on a very easy course. It only shows up on the 2 ends of the spectrum.
I feel like strokes gained around the green is very much the same way too. Like guys hit over an average amount of greens in regulation at Sedgefield. So if you're relying on your around the green game, that's probably not a great thing.
Yeah, you're already a little bit behind the 8 ball. You need like a Spiethian around the green game to stay in it and maybe hole a couple out.
So I've sorted by the past 24 rounds by fairways gained. So the best crossover I've found, the top 10 in fairways gained over the past 24 rounds: Reavie, Duffner, Armour, Stanley, Long, Hovland, Stewart, Zach Johnson, Austin Cook, and Jonas Blix. The only guys that cross over as high ranks in some of the other metrics, both Armour and Chez Reavie rank inside the top 10 of 400 and 450 yard par 4s in that time. Hovland is second tee to green. He's 4th in approach and 5th in birdies or better gain. He's also 2nd in the proximity range from 175 to 200 yards. So I think that not just looking at fairways gain, but seeing if those players actually do something else well correlates better than just being like, this guy hits a ton of fairways, he must be good.
Yeah, for sure. And especially the further you get down the board, you start to get into like almost like specialists, right? Like you mentioned Brian Gay, you mentioned Ryan Armour. Both of those guys we know are great at hitting the fairway, but if one thing goes wrong, like that's their only out. So getting somebody who at least has something other than a straight driver, maybe it is they can perform on par 4s. Maybe they're better than average on approaches, especially the further you get down the board. If you can find guys with 1.5, 2 skills, you're doing better than their peers.
So let's talk about the plus 10K players in the field now. Webb Simpson, coming off a great week at the WGC, is the most expensive player. He's $11,200. The last time he was above $11,000, he came T3 at the RSM back in the swing season. Then it's Hideki, Spieth, Morikawa coming off the win, the defending champ, Brandt Snedeker, who was very good tee to green on the weekend at the WGC, just could not get that putter rolling. In a 156-man field, it's a full field, and the back end being kind of crappy. I might be good with avoiding all of these guys above $10,000 and just starting my teams in the nines.
It's going to be tough. I'm happy to avoid three of these guys. Like I have pretty little interest in Spieth, Hideki, and Morikawa. The other two, Webb and Brandt, will probably reel me in. Now it's early in the week. I haven't started building these lineups yet. I imagine to your point, Pat, it is going to be a little difficult to stomach some of these lineups if we have to put one of these guys in. But I think there are some value plays. We've already mentioned a couple of them under 7K that I think you can kind of balance it out a little bit if you want to go get Webb, if you want to go get Brandt, like I'm kind of looking at. So it's going to depend a lot on building what you're able to stomach. But I wouldn't kill you for starting below it. I just don't think I'll get there.
So early returns, we're discussing this on a Tuesday morning, so obviously ownership calculations are going to vary a lot over the next 36 hours or so, but it is looking like Webb Simpson is going to be the highest owned player. People are paying up for the safety, at least perceived safety of Webb, and he's been excellent at this course. He's won at this course almost a decade ago, but has turned out a bunch of top fives along the way. Like I haven't projected anywhere between like 21 and 26% because I think a lot of people are finding similar values that you're seeing down at the bottom. Like Sean Stephanie is one that just the stat heads are going to love this week. He's only $6,900. So I can see a lot of combinations of Webb Simpson, Sean Stephanie, potentially Ryan Armour as well, and just flooding your lineups that way and trying to figure it out in between. I have nothing against Webb at his price. I actually quite like Webb. I like him the most of all the plus 10K players, but I don't love what that does to my lineups at the very bottom. Like I don't have a whole lot of faith in some of these $6,000 guys as well as they rate out.
Yeah, it's that combination that you mentioned, Webb and Ryan Armour, or even our buddy Andrew Landry's down there. Like, I think those will be popular starting places, and then having to differentiate yourselves in other spots. It's really just a matter of, I think, what type of contest you're playing, right? I mean, Webb named his daughter Wyndham after this event. He loves it here, and it's the record shows it. He's been absolutely excellent. So it's not a matter of is Webb a good play. It's a matter of are you able to build five other guys around him and feel comfortable with it when you press the submit button.
The other big thing too, like. Well, I acknowledge that like Webb is the betting favorite in this tournament. Hideki's one of the best players on earth, and he's here, and no one really seems to care. But when I look at the $10,000 guys and the $9,000 guys, I really don't see that big of a gap in talent, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, I mean, even when you get down under 10K, like Paul Casey, who we'll probably have to talk about, like he's sitting there $9,800. Like if you want to start your lineups there, you'd probably be very different. Paul Casey is another guy who probably isn't being talked up enough already early in the week. So there isn't a huge difference. Snedeker, as much as I love Snedeker this week, he obviously gets the 10K boost for just being here at the Wyndham and shooting a 59 last year and going wire to wire and all that good stuff. So you're probably right. There isn't a huge difference between like tier 1 and tier 2 here, especially the bottom of tier 1 and the top of tier 2.
So like Casey, Reed, Horschel, Hovland, Wolf, Reeve, Sabatini, Neiman, and Cam Smith. That's the entire $9,000 range. I love Reed this week. I'm just going to back Reed. And like, if you tell me that, Jordan Spieth is over $1,000 better than Patrick Reed, I'm going to kind of laugh at you because that's not true. They're about the same, I would think. Hovland at $9,500 actually seems like he's kind of underpriced for this field. I know he's going to be popular. I don't care. I think he's probably one of the three best players in this field. So at $9,500, I'm in on that. And I'll probably just end up riding Neiman. But the other guys that you talked about, like Casey, Chez Reavie rates out just so excellent for this field. And even someone like Billy Horschel, like I think I'd be more prone to take Casey or Chez, but it does seem like you can find low-owned good players in the 6K area that aren't substantially worse than the 10K guys.
Yeah, so Reavie apps like breaks my model this week.
Me too.
Yeah, by all accounts, he's like the perfect course fit. He's missed 3 of the last 4 cuts here. So, I mean, this is the difference between course history and course fit, I suppose. But excellent, super accurate off the tee. He's like best in the field in par 4s. He's great on approaches. After that win, he missed a couple of cuts in a row. He had a decent performance at the WGC last week. I think he was like T27. So hopefully he's rounding back into it after that, 11-year gap or whatever it was between his two wins. He's getting back into the swing of things. But yeah, he just absolutely breaks it for me. I think I'd be stupid not to get him in some lineups here.
Yeah, T27 last week at the WGC, and that's also like when you think about like strokes gained, that's strokes gained against the field, and that was a very high end field. So it's, it rates out a little bit better than if he had done it at the Barracuda in terms of some of these numbers. And the big thing was he lost a bunch of strokes around the green, 3.2 strokes around the green in the negative of the WGC, lost 2 strokes putting, gained 3.5 off the tee, and gained almost 3 through approach. So the ball striking was top notch. And if we talk about these players that score really well on the par fours from that certain range and hit every fairway, that is Chez Reavie. Like, you feel like you almost have to use him, but I don't think that people will go back to him. I'm not sure how this plays out for him.
Well, I just don't think there's a lot. Like, I don't think he garners a lot of buzz like over the course of the season, right? I don't think anyone's ever super excited to play him. And then the fact that you have like, a couple of narratives here. No one wants to play a guy like after he wins, and then he goes out and misses a couple cuts, and you're like, well, I'm definitely not going to play him. He doesn't have any course. His course history here stinks. Like, there's really no reason to play him unless you're looking at the model, unless you're looking at a course fit and saying, well, here's what we've determined are the stats that are able to find success for the Wyndham Championship. And who checks off all the boxes? Chez Reavie does. So it's a pretty specific situation that you have to even uncover Reavie as a play. And then again, look at all of that and say, okay, I'm still going to play him after the missed cuts and the bad course history.
One of the fun features of the ownership projections on Fantasy National is you can see how many people have favored a player, how many people you have the calculated ownership as it tries to weight itself out, but you can see how many actual lineups they've been generated in the number of lineups that have been generated so far. So he's highly favorited this week. Like, people are like, oh yeah, Chez Reavie, perfect, I'll put him in. But he's not ending up in a lot of people's lineups, which is kind of funny. Like, he's someone that everyone kind of likes, but he's not their first choice in that range. Like, Hovland is the first choice in that range. Reed is the first choice in that range. Or if you build one of these Webb Snedeker teams or Webb Reed teams, you just physically cannot afford his salary on it. So he's someone that's popping up as like a tertiary or secondary pick that people like, but he's not like a full commitment guy. I think I might have to go full commitment here on Chez. Put him in like 35% of my lineups.
He's like that friend that you only hang out with when that other friend is there, like when your better friend is there. So if you don't get the better friend in, you're not getting Reavie here. It's one of those situations where he's never the first man in. Listen, I'm almost like, I've played Reavie the last handful of weeks. I've been burned a couple of times. I had plenty of them when he raised the trophy on Sunday evening. It's one of these situations where I'm kind of able to ignore the noise. I agree with you. He will very likely be one of my core plays. $9,300. That feels like a steal here.
The two lowest owned players I projected in the $9,000 area right now are Cam Smith and the Wolfman. Everyone's over the Wolfman now, but he wasn't a disaster at the WGC. It's like Morikawa gets this big bump because he won the Barracuda. Wolf went out and competed at a WGC and performed pretty well. Yet Morikawa gets the huge bump in pricing. He gets a huge bump in odds. And everyone's like, oh, Matthew Wolf, he won 3 weeks ago. He sucks now.
Yeah, he's terrible. I'm trying to pull up his stats I feel like he closed well. Okay, yeah, Matt Wolf's weekend, he was 5 under on Saturday. He was another 1 under on Sunday. I thought he held his own in that field, seemed to get more comfortable as the week went on. He has such a unique elite skill set that it's interesting when we see these young guys go to courses for the first time and see what they're going to be able to do. And some of them are just able to adapt. And I have a feeling that Wolf's skill set allows him to find success in a lot of different places. So I certainly won't kill you for going to Wolf. And then Cam Smith, which you mentioned, I think the perception of Cam Smith does not align with the actual reality around Cam Smith. He's got a couple of really good finishes in a row, but we've kind of seen him, whether it's at, only for a few holes over the course of a tournament, like he'll be at the top of the leaderboard. He'll be in second place. He'll be up there contending. And then he finishes, T12 or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, that's kind of a disappointment. When really, if you would have told me before the tournament started that Cam Smith was going to finish in 12th for the WGC, I would have been super stoked about it. So I think perception's a little off on Cam Smith. I agree with both of those guys.
So for me, it's going to be Reed, it's going to be Hovland, it's going to be Reavie, and then probably Joaquin Niemann. I just can't quit Niemann. It feels like he's really close, doesn't it?
I mean, I guess closer than he's been in a while. Yes. This is certainly the most life he has shown in the last, like, I don't know, what's it been, 12, 15 months of him being a pro. So yes, now I don't know how close he is, but he's closer than he's been in recent memory.
Yeah, before the Open, the miscut at the Open. I mean, that's going to happen to some people. He was 10th, 23rd, 5th, and 5th. It's not bad for Das Wonder.
No.
We've all moved on to the new rookies, but forget this guy is like really good.
Yeah, and he's still like, I don't even know how old he is, like 22 years old or something. Like the kid's he's gonna be just fine. I think it might have been you and I who talked about this a year ago. Like he's gonna have really good stretches of golf. He's gonna have really bad stretches of golf. A lot of these guys who come out and turn pro, they're just very inconsistent. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean that they're never going to win. It just means you're going to have huge volatile results from them. And that's kind of what we've seen from Neiman over the course of the year. And it looks like he's starting to figure things out. And yeah, to your point, like everybody misses the cut at the British Open. Who cares?
8K range. I don't really know what to do in here because there's just like sort of your tour guy name like Howell, Noren, Glover, Keimer, Hadwin, Fratelli, Sungjae, Benny Ann, Piercy, Kokrak. That's the entire 8K range. No one's super inspiring, but I did find that just looking at leaderboards and not really digging any more into it, that the Wyndham really crosses over with the Heritage really, really well. It's a shorter course. It's similar fields. When you look at it, any skill set can kind of play. Accuracy is a bigger factor there, the shorter par fours. That it kind of points me to Hadwin a little bit. I do like the way he's been playing as well.
Hadwin, I like. I think he's kind of middle of the pack for me. The guy that I will probably be focusing my attention at in this range is Lucas Glover. Super accurate off the tee. Plays par fours really well. His results coming into this, he hasn't played since the British Open. 20th place finish, 10th at the John Deere, 7th at the 3M. He's playing well. His stats, his skill set seems to line up here with being able to hit the ball straight. Making a lot of birdies on par fours. He seems to be a pretty decent fit. So I think he's going to get a lot of my attention there.
Yeah, he's made the cut at this tournament in his past 3 appearances as well. All finishes inside the top 35. So yeah, he feels like more like a cash game guy to me. I don't know if do you think he can go out and contend and try to win this thing?
No, I mean, there's probably only a handful of guys that can go out and contend in most fields. But to your point, Glover's ceiling is probably like 5th place, something like that. His floor is probably, making the cut more often than not. I agree. I don't think he's ever going to burn you here, especially because he doesn't make a lot of bogeys. He's a pretty safe guy. His scoring in general is pretty consistent. So I think he's a pretty safe bet to make the cut. I think he's a pretty big long shot to actually win it, but top 10 certainly not out of the realm of possibilities.
Are we just overlooking Fratelli after his win and like pretty good performance at the British Open and a nice performance the week before the John Deere at the 3M as well? Does it feel like his run is over? Because I'm not hearing any buzz about Nylon Dylon Fratelli.
Were you hearing buzz before the win on him?
I had bet him 4 consecutive weeks before the week that he won, so I was on him until I wasn't, and then he finally broke through.
All right. Well, don't bet him this week. I was actually pretty impressed that he was able to back up the win, go straight to Northern Ireland, played well. He ends up making the cut. I think he finished in like 32nd. Like it was a good stretch for Fratelli. I think he's got a decent game. I mean, the only knock against him is that he can't putt very well, but I'm team no putt. Like give me those guys all day long. So you can certainly get me to go there. He's probably the third, maybe after like Glover, Hadwin. Fratelli might be a guy that if I had to rank them is probably third for me.
Yeah, it's just strange. Like looking in this entire 8K range, besides Glover and Hadwin, who do hit a good amount of fairways, everyone else kind of sucks at finding the fairway. That if it's their first time coming to this course, or they don't have a bunch of experience here, or they're just not what we consider to be like high-end birdie makers, that they're probably just all fades, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I've seen Martin Keimer's name kicked around because he's got like three good rounds at Sedgefield over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, but he's pretty bad on par fours. I've got little excitement. I think if you're rostering Keimer, good luck to you. I can't get there, but that's another name I saw.
Yeah, I think that, Keimer, I get it. Like you bank on the skill set. The approaches are back. Like he's 10th in this field over the past 24 round in strokes gained approach. But I don't know. Like if I'm going to build a lot in this like $9,000 area, and I really compare the $9,000 area and the talent gap between the 10Ks as not that steep, I don't find that there's a considerable gap between like the 8Ks and a lot of these 7K guys, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they're all kind of just mushed together, right? And the odds, the Vegas odds came out, which kind of dictate a lot of the salaries, and guys are only separated by $100, and everyone seems to be this would be like the 40 to 50 to 1 range on the betting board, where everyone is 40 or 50 to 1 and everyone is the same price, and it's just like, well, just start picking them out. Now, because of that, like, and that's kind of a situation where, to me, if you only spend 49,500, you don't have to worry about ownership at all. A little difference between $100 here, $200 on another guy seems to be very similar in expected value when it comes to DraftKings scoring. You get yourself to a lineup that's 49.5. You can go out, take Webb Simpson, take any of the other chalk that you want, which might be a way that I start building my lineups.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about ownership, especially as it pertains to this tournament. Like you mentioned, just leave a bit of money on the table. But I always find it funny when you release like the optimal lineups, and like it's like, and then people are like, "Wow, why wouldn't I just leave $8,000 on the board?" It's like, well, you can't pick the optimal lineup with $50,000. Why would you think that leaving $10,000 on the table, although that was the optimal lineup, is a lineup that you would somehow fall on?
Dude, those optimals trigger so many people. I love it so much. That's like the main reason I post them, is to get everybody all lathered up every day. But no, to your point, it is not an optimal strategy at all times to just like spend 47 or 48K. What my point of this whole thing is, there's not a huge difference between someone at like 86 and 85 or 83 and 82. And if you kind of take $100 off every guy, you're $500 or $600 below the salary cap. You have not changed your expected value of return of DraftKings points, but you have significantly increased your chances of being at least a little bit more contrarian as a build of 6 golfers and to be unique. Like, that is the main and basically only takeaway. Not go out and spend 43,000 and just pick 6 guys under 7K.
So, of the 8K guys, who are your 2 favorite? I'm going to go with Hadwin and actually Scott Piercy. Anytime we get into a birdie-making situation, I want Scott Piercy. He might shoot plus 20, but he's apt to go minus 25 as well.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Glover is to me is a solid 1. And then I could probably interchange either Hadwin or maybe Fratelli. I'd probably go Hadwin.
And in 3 starts at the Wyndham Championship, Scott Piercy has made the cut every single time. So that's always good news. But it's like 2014, 2016, 2018. It's been over the course of some years here for Scott Piercy. 7K range. The guys that I'm targeting right off the hop, I really like Kyle Stanley this week. I think that he rates out really well. The ball striking has really returned since the Memorial. He's not quite at the level where he was last year, but he seems like he's sneaking back up to that. And you're getting a pretty good discount. Like, I don't think that Kyle Stanley is, substantially worse than Martin Keimer right now, or Lucas Glover, or Charles Howell. It seems like he should be in that mix, except he's, $800 to $1,000 cheaper. So I like him a lot. Brian Harmon really pops for me, and that fucking terrifies me.
Yeah, you probably should be. I remember a time where I used to be like, oh, Brian Harmon, he's the safest player in the field. Like, this had to be years ago, but I would be a little bit concerned about that. Here's one that is even scarier that keeps showing up. What about Russ Henley? I hate to even bring it up. Like, I don't like the guy. He's had an extended run of playing super poorly, and then he goes out second place at the John Deere Classic. I think he was 15th last week at the Barracuda. Accurate enough off the tee. He's someone that at least moves the needle a little bit for me. I hate this range in general, but Henley at least is interesting.
Yeah, if we're talking about like what the stats are telling us, it's the top end of the $7,000 range that really does it for me. So guys over the past 24 rounds and 50 rounds that rate out top 25 in the stats that I've run. Streelman is 10th, Henley is 18th, Kyle Stanley is 5th, Seb Straka is 13th, Brian Harmon is 8th, and Doc Redman is 23rd, and Russell Knox 24th, Vaughn Taylor 14th. Like, stats love the guys in this range, and I don't like any of these guys. So it's probably telling me something that I should be focusing more on these guys.
Yeah. Now this is the range where we probably start to get in some of these guys that need to get in, right? For the top 125. I think Duffner is on the bubble. Who else around here is close?
Duffner's not even really on the bubble. Like, he needs a good week in order to get in. Like, Noren is actually the bubble guy right now. He's 125. So he needs to like make the cut, and he should be safe. But I'm not trying to project too much onto that, to tell you the truth. Like, what if it's one of those things where, oh yeah, he needs a good week in order to get in. Well, what if the pressure is too much and it goes exactly the opposite way? Like, you can't. it's going to work out for someone to be like, oh, this guy is 138th. He needed a good week to get in. I'm going to take him. He has a good week and you look like a genius, but that probably had nothing to do with him needing to get in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and quite frankly, if guys were able to turn it on the week that they needed to be able to do it, or on a week-to-week basis, they wouldn't be in a situation where they were on the outside of the top 125 looking in. They would have already been in, because like 6 weeks ago, they would have been like, now's a really good time for me to start playing well. So I don't think there's that much to it. And then I was reading, I think it was from the PGA Tour's website, like only like 5 guys who are outside the 125 are going to jump in this week. Like, it's not as big of a movement as we like to think it is, or as like the telecast kind of perceives it. It's a lot of it is already pretty locked, barring someone going out and winning the thing on the bubble.
I think that, I mean, Duffner's a guy I backed throughout the course of the summer, and he just completely let me down following the Wells Fargo. That now that I'm off of him, that he's probably the guy that breaks through and ends up winning this week. And he's skill set wise rates out really well for this course. I just don't trust him to make enough putts to go out and win this thing.
I don't trust him to make any putts. I mean, if there is one golfer on tour that putts like me, it is Jason Duffner, especially over those 3-footers. Like, my knee's not just like he does. So it's not a knock against him. Like, hey, we're the same guy. What about Doc Redman? I think, he's been playing well. He's the young kid who kind of gets overlooked with some of these other guys, but he's posted some really good finishes. We have a much smaller sample size on him than we do on the rest of these guys. But I was surprised to see him take the week off at he didn't play the Open Championship. Oh, no, he did. I was surprised to see him take a couple weeks off recently, because I know he's got that non-exempt status that he's trying to get into, but he's one of these guys that shows up on leaderboards.
I thought that he got his status after coming second at the Rocket Mortgage. I actually like Doc Redman a lot. I think that you can insert him in pretty comfortably. Like, there's a few, I mean, I wouldn't call him a Donald Ross specialist at this point, but he did come second at Detroit Golf Club, a Donald Ross design. This is a Donald Ross design. He's going to be in the FedEx Cup playoffs, it looks like. So maybe he can find his way to Eastlake, and maybe he has a shot there as well. But he hits enough fairways. He makes enough birdies. He's a pretty good putter. Not a great putter. He's a decent putter. And he does seem like he's coming in at a value. Like, he's not on the level in terms of status as the Morikawas or Hovlands or even Matthew Wolff or even Neiman, who was once the top amateur in the world. But he's like the mini tier behind them, and you're getting a $2,000 to $3,000 break on his price.
Right. Yeah. And in a field like this where things go a little haywire, the further down the list you go, and we're talking about names like, oh, can I trust Russ Henley? Can I trust Jason Duffner? Talking about guys that are things that guys have a lot to play for. Like, this is, Doc Redman's career, right? He's trying to make a good run in his first real season on tour. Like, I think I know he's playing much better than some of these other guys in the range. And I like his game.
So the two guys that I really wanted to focus on here in the $7,000 area, just based on their pedigree, like Martin Keimer is a name that people recognize because the guy's won 2 majors. But if we're thinking about like official world golf ranks or names that we've thought about in previous years, Brennan Grace is in this range, who is not playing well whatsoever, but he is a previous winner at the Heritage, which is a crossover course to this. And Lucas Beauregard is just kind of down there in the $7,000 range. He's a huge boomer bust type of player, but compared to everyone surrounding him, he's like 40th in the world rankings, and the guys around him are 300th in the world rankings.
Yeah, that was one of the names that I did a double take on as well, for that exact reason, which is like, okay, what you get down in like the mid sevens is like, here's all these guys who are 300th world ranked golfers, and then you get Beauregard, and you're like, oh, well, we've at least seen him get scorching hot for multiple days at a time, which is what you're going to have to do to win a golf tournament, or in his case, maybe come top 5. So I think he's somewhat interesting. And then if you want to go just like super recent form, boom or bust in the type of way that you're describing as well, Troy Merritt comes in second last week. He had a top 10 just a few starts ago at the 3M, I believe. Sandwich that in between a couple of missed cuts. Like, he's someone that, again, boom or bust, no level of consistency, but shows up down here for a pretty good price.
Yeah, I have him 22nd rated out. Nick Watney is another player that tends to play well at Donald Ross designs too. He's down in this range. Zach Johnson, someone who actually does need a good week to get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. I just don't know what to make of him. Like, he's down here. Corey Connors is down here. Spawn, Munoz. And Siwoo Kim is down here, obviously, who is just excellent.
There's like 40. Okay, Siwoo we can talk about. There's like 40 guys in this range of $1,000. It's super interesting. Zach Johnson, I think he's just I don't know. He just might be washed at this point. It's definitely the down end of his career. And Corey Connors, if you didn't have to putt, he'd win every golf tournament. Siwoo is interesting because when you compare, maybe it's not the Vegas odds, because I know his Vegas odds are pretty long too, but when you compare like expected win percentage, like this guy just won here, what, 3 years ago? Wasn't it Grant, Stenson, and then Siwoo won it 3 years ago? For him to be as low as he is was a little bit jarring when I first came across it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like he plays well at these shorter courses. Obviously, he won the Players. He's won here. He's played really well at the Heritage in the past. He played really well at Pebble Beach this season as well. It's just one of those things. Either he's on or he's off, and he has been off for some time now. He's lost strokes on approach in 7 consecutive tournaments. He's missed the cut in 5 consecutive tournaments. I don't know if I want to play him on my DraftKings roster, but I will definitely be betting him at 160 to 1.
Yeah, so for the record, Siwoo Kim actually has the lowest floor of any projected golfer, and one of the, kind of like a medium high floor. So I know my projections are pretty good if that's the case. That sounds exactly like Siwoo, and it's like here's all the low projections, here's all the floor projections, and then Siwoo is like the very bottom. His floor can be as low as anybody's.
So let's talk about these guys in the 6K range that you can fill out your lineup with if you want to go spend at the very top, whether it be Webb and another guy in the 9s, Webb and another guy in the 10s, just 2 10K guys. We mentioned Ryan Armour, Andrew Landry, Joel Damon is one that statistically rates out pretty well here. Adam Long actually popped up for me. Adam Long's probably the one that I'm going to end up using. He's down at $6,500. Peter Malnati is someone we kind of glossed over. He's $7,100. I like Peter Malnati a lot this week as well. Is there anyone that just leaps off the page to you? Because I don't know if I want to be playing like $6,000 chalk at the Wyndham Championship.
Oh, yeah, that's a really scary thought. There is no one that leaps off, but there are the names that you mentioned are kind of the similar names that I'm on, right? I think everyone is going to be very interested in Ryan Armour. Back-to-back top 8 finishes. He drives the ball really well. I understand it, but if he gets up to the ranges of ownership where we start to get concerned that he is chalky, it might be an opportunity to go to someone like Andrew Landry, who is finally showing us signs of life recently. He's another guy who hits the ball very straight, hits a lot of fairways. I think he could find success here. The other guy, and we mentioned it at the top, I believe. This is like the one chance a year you get to play Brian Gay. There's only a couple courses you can play him on every year. It's like the Wyndham, RBC, Heritage, finished well last year. Like, so if you want to go out and get Brian Gay, this is your once a year opportunity. But I'm not super stoked to roster any of these guys. I'm just going to use them as kind of lineup filler and try to spread it around and try to be a little bit different. You're right. I don't want to take the guy down here that's 20% owned.
Is it time to go back to Luke List?
Oh man, I don't know.
Misser of 5 straight cuts, Luke List.
We might have to have an intervention on Luke List, my friend. I just like, there's no life there. It's really bad.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. He was so good. Like for the while, it was just like the guy can't putt. If he could just make an average amount of putts, he would have won 3 tournaments. But it seems like he's now peaked, and it's now just all on the downswing. It really bums me out.
Yeah, it's a shame. And it's funny because, and we've talked about this, like Luke List used to break every single model every single week just because he couldn't putt. And you'd have to look at it and be like, oh, okay, like Luke List is number 3 in my model, but like I know what that really means. Now he's not even showing up there, and I'm like, oh man, it must be really bad because he wasn't even getting a ton of results. He had a couple of high finishes when he was breaking the model. Now he's not even showing up, so I know it's down in the dumps for Luke List.
Yeah, he peaked at the PGA Championship when he squeezed out that finish to get into the Masters for next year. It's like, oh, I'm in the Masters next year? This is great. I don't have to do anything for the next 12 months.
Yeah, just wait till April and then start playing again. Yeah, there's other guys down here. I mean, I'm not super excited about anybody, but you can't get me to Luke.
Just trying to see, like, maybe if I just sort by, where's the Heritage? If I sort by Heritage and to see who played well there this year, maybe that'll give me some insight on who can just pop up from the back end this year. I remember Kokrak made that run on Sunday, so maybe that's good enough to sort himself out.
The Gooch is always down here, right? He's always going to be great with his irons. He can kind of pop off at times.
He can, but since he's like come back from injury, the irons haven't been very good. Like he had that nice performance in Detroit at the Donald Ross course. That was all putting related, shockingly enough.
Yeah, and then I think he made a couple cuts, but basically he might have got MDF'd twice in a row. Like they were both like top, or they were both like 70th place finishes, something like that. So he hasn't been great recently since that injury.
Yeah. I'm just trying to parse it out. Like I said, Adam Long, Damon kind of scares me. Landry and Long are maybe my two preferences down here. Maybe Streb just because he's like playing all right.
Yeah, I can kind of endorse Adam Long. He showed up a lot for me last week. The things that I like to do, and this is like super team no putt, is just like go back and find the guys that are playing well tee to green and they're way off their baseline for putting. So Adam Long has been one of those guys. So the thought process is, okay, if Adam Long can just continue to play tee to green as he is and just get back to his normal baseline putting, like that's like 4 extra strokes a tournament, right? So Long was one of the guys that, for especially last week, he showed up as one of these guys that has a lot of ceiling left to hit. I haven't seen his name as much this week, but I can endorse based on just kind of his like last month or so.
Looking at the heritage from just earlier this year, obviously CT Pan was in contention at Wyndham last year, blew it on the 72nd hole, but then won RBC Heritage this year. So there's a nice crossover for you. Scott Piercy came third. JT Poston came sixth. Streelman came sixth. Merritt came 10th. Brian Stewart came 16th. He's in the $6,000 area. Maybe
yes,
like
he was 67.
Maybe like Poston and Stewart are two guys to look at.
Yeah, that's not bad. You mentioned Merritt, who, I keep going back to that. Stewart would be interesting. Couple missed cuts in a row, but a top 5 at what was that? Like the 3 or Rocket Mortgage, right? When they get to go there. So there's at least been some life recently. This is a pretty ugly range, Pat. When you're down here making decisions, it's just get guys that aren't super highly owned, right?
True, but like, do you even need to dip into this ring? Like, if you do my strategy and just pass on all the $10,000 guys, you lose a lot of win equity that way. But maybe it's a week that those guys don't win, and the 9K range really dominates. You could fill your roster out pretty easily with 2 9K guys, an 8K guy, and 3 7K guys.
Yeah, I think if you dip into the 10K, you're gonna have to dip into this range. I think that's where we draw the line, and it might only be for one guy, which is probably why Armour is going to show up in so many lineups. It's probably why, maybe Landry won't. He's not as popular, but like there's going to be like 2 guys in this range that show up in every lineup because they're paired with Snedeker or they're paired with Webb Simpson. So I think that's the delineation. If you are starting at Paul Casey, Patrick Reed, whatever it is in the $9,000 range, you probably don't have to get here. You can stick to that 7K range, fill up on those guys, get a couple of 8K guys and go about your day.
All right. Any final thoughts on the Wyndham Championship? Are you excited for the playoffs in golf?
Cautiously excited. I like the playoffs. I like the smaller fields. I like that they're going to narrow this down to 30. I'm super nervous about how it's going to go when Brooks Koepka starts at 10 under at the Tour Championship. So I won't knock it. My instinct is this is going to be horrible, but I won't knock it until I see it. I think the Tour had to do something to get one champion. The guy who wins the tournament is your FedEx Cup champion. So I like the idea of it. I'm a little nervous about how it's going to be executed.
Do we have any idea how like gambling or DraftKings is going to work that week? Because people have like I want to say like 13 to 15 different people are like, oh, here's how it's definitely going to work, but they're all completely different ways that it's going to work. So no one has any idea.
No one knows definitely how it's going to work. I mean, I guess the easiest way, like just build in what their starting position is, right? So Brooks Koepka was already going to be the favorite. He starts with a 2-shot lead, for example. Like he's going to have to be an even bigger favorite. I can't imagine the time and energy it would take for everybody to try to figure out, okay, his final score was 17 under, but he was really only 7 under because we spotted him 10 strokes. Like that to me sounds like an absolute nightmare. I'm hoping it's just like, hey, here's the DraftKings pricing. Brooks Koepka's like, let's do it, man. Like Koepka's like 16 grand, like something crazy, right? He's the best player in the field. He's got the lead. It's only 30 guys. Like, let's do something crazy and just go from there. But I have no idea how it's going to work.
Yeah, maybe it's just a nice week to play showdown contests.
There you go.
That's probably the best way to do it. Why did you change your Twitter handle?
To me, I like the Rick Run Good brand. I think it's easier to say like, hey, Rick Run Good on YouTube, Rick Run Good on Twitter. DFS on demand to me was not like I was hiding behind the website's name, so to speak, but kind of like that. I've just always kind of liked the the Rick Run Good aspect of it. So when I got I've always had both, and I just quick pulled the switch, and it was pretty painless. I just think it better fits what I'm trying to accomplish.
All right. Go to the Rick Run Good YouTube channel or dfsondemand.com to check out all of Rick's work. There's videos, there's podcasts, there's a sports gambling show. Rick's got it all covered for you, and focusing on PGA full time. So have fun with that over the swing season.
Hey, I'm super stoked. To your point, we're going to pick on all those NFL guys who come in, think they're all big smarty pants Pat, and try to jump into the swing season at Mayakoba, and we're going to take their money. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's the Matt Kuchar swing season of immense profits. At least that's what it was last year. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My bets will be up on my Facebook page tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon. I'll have a football show dropping on Wednesday, MMA on Thursday, another football show on Friday. Football's almost here. I can't ignore that fact, so we have to go back to 2 days a week with golf, 2 days a week for football, and then eventually it'll just morph in to a completely football show until golf restarts itself again, all right? Smash the like button for the episode. Get into the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Open and become a member at fantasynational.com today, all right? Good luck at the Wyndham Championship. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!